Alrighty. Let's see if I can try something. Explain a video about why animals can eat you. Take 1. In Florida, we have alligators living closer and closer to human beings like they have never done before. In Africa, all over Africa, people come into contact with elephants, lions, crocodiles, some of the most dangerous animals on the entire planet. Even in Scotland, in the United Kingdom, we have a gorgeous population of golden eagles. These animals just can't help themselves from killing and eating lambs, and farmers don't like that because they're supposed to kill and sell the lambs. Charismatic megafauna, or groups of animals which don't live slowly, they don't live according to human rules, and they just kind of they do their own thing despite us being here. So, we have an entire planet, and we have animals on the planet which are perfectly capable of eating you or your lambs, and we don't do a lot anymore to get rid of these things. We don't do a lot anymore Actually, we do a hell of a lot to try and preserve these animals. A small thought might pass through your head saying, well, why don't we just get rid of them all and kill them all? And get rid of all the golden eagles and the elephants and the crocodiles and just have the animals which can't eat you and call it a day, call that nature. I'm here to argue a case to why large, charismatic megafauna, which can kill and eat you, is good for you and why we should be preserving these animals. But before we can talk about anything, I think it's really important to recognise human-wildlife conflicts. They claim an uncomfortable amount of lives every single year on both sides. It's messy, it's complicated. Like all conflicts are, there's no clear answer to what is to be sorted about it. So let's bring up an example of a human-wildlife conflict which isn't crazy bad, but I have personal experience with. And that is in the gorgeous town of Mossel Bay. Mossel Bay is known for two things. It's known for surfing and it's known for great white sharks. This is a bit of a strange example because people don't really get eaten here. Actually, it's known as a bay where people should be getting eaten, but they don't. Attacks are extremely rare. I think the last one happened decades and decades ago. So it's kind of a bad example to throw out as a human-wildlife conflict. But it is a personal example that I've been to. I spent 2 years there, so it's something that I know personally and that I've seen and not just read on the internet. How is this a potential human-wildlife conflict? Well, you have people who like to surf and splash around in the water whilst wearing a wetsuit. And you have giant apex predators who hunt marine mammals which kind of look like a human in a wetsuit. Now, like I said, Mossel Bay is a bit of a strange example because it's very rare that it happens here, but it's a perfect example of something that happens all over the world. You have great white sharks in Australia, in the US, in America, and I don't know where else they live, but in Australia and America, people like to surf, and also great whites like to hunt the seals around these areas. And it's not easy. It's not like you can just tell people to stop going in the water where the sharks are. This might be their only location to surf, and I'm not going to be the guy who sits there and tells them that they can't surf and do something that they really enjoy. And you can't exactly pull over a shark on the side of the beach and say, hey, listen, man, you got to hunt somewhere else. This isn't good anymore. So this is a bit of a ridiculous problem to be having, but it's a really big problem. Let's go back to Mossel Bay. Lots of surfers, lots of sharks. No one eats each other. At least, the surfers I talked to were pretty alive. How were they like that? Let's dive into it. I met a few surfers in Mossel Bay. Not a lot of surfers, but if they are a representative of the population there, and these guys kind of know a lot about sharks. They were telling me that the great whites tend to do a lot of their hunting around the island in which the seals are. So that's pretty much deeper water. If you know anything about great whites, they breach on their prey. They need deep water in order to do that. So the majority of their hunting activity is going to be around this island. Where the people like to surf is a little closer to the beach where the waves come in. The sharks still come in, so you're out of the major danger zone, but you're not out of the danger zone. Sharks will come into these shallows and they'll rest in the breaks. You can't see them. Like a 10-foot, 20-foot great white shark can sit in the breakers and you won't be able to see it unless you have a really sharp eye. So there's still a danger there, but the danger is dramatically reduced. So I spent 2 years in Mossel Bay, and throughout that whole time I was there, I heard no reports of people getting eaten. So the knowledge that these people have about the animals must be a great deterrent, must be the best deterrent as to not get eaten by these animals. So learning about these animals must be one of the best deterrents in order to combat the human-wildlife conflict problem that we have around the world. It's very important to note, however, that great white shark populations differ around the globe. They differ on the coast. In Mossel Bay they might be one way, but in California or Australia they might be completely different. So it's different wherever you go. If you're a surfer watching this, then don't take my advice for it. Learn what everyone else around you says and take knowledge from that way in order to be safe in the water. Anyway, let's move on. This is a lot of work. You have to have people on the water studying the sharks. You've got to learn about the sharks. You've got to teach people about the sharks. You've got to translate all of this data that you collect in the field into usable, readable information in order for people to read it, and then they have to then put that information into practice. Why not just kill all the sharks, keep the seals for the tourists, call it a day? I'll tell you why. We are fascinated in animals like sharks. I spoke to some Florida shark fishermen, and I believe they were just catch and kill fishermen, and they love sharks. They were fascinated with sharks. These animals hold a place in our hearts which is just unexplainable how fascinated we are. We're afraid of them, but there's also something about knowing that they're there which is almost encouraging. It almost, instead of bringing darkness on the world, it kind of makes it a little bit of a brighter, more exciting place. There's something that these kinds of animals hold within all of our collective consciousness, which kind of reminds us of the intensity of nature and how awe-inspiring it is. You know, if it was just a load of sardines in that water, I feel like that island or that it wouldn't have the same character, if that makes sense. Personally, I find something almost comforting about knowing that there are animals which exist today which could eat me. I can't explain how that's comforting, but it is. There's something really good, or it feels good to know that giant 20-foot fish still exist today, and I can go see them. And I think this is why giant predatory megafauna is so important to us, because they're representations of an adventurous world, a world where we can just discover new things. Giant predatory animals, or just giant animals in general, are like they're symbols of adventure, they're symbols of the unknown. Like if you had a beautiful mountain range full of deer, it would be kind of boring. But if that same mountain range had deer, boar, bison, wolves, bears, eagles, suddenly I want to go there. I want to see what it looks like, because it's this great grand old mountain range. These giant toothy animals need our protection. Giant toothy monstrous beasts that exist today are kind of like the basis of our mythology. They're what our myths and legends are based off of. People going to weird far out places and seeing things which they never would have imagined to be real. And I feel like that's what these giant toothy animals represent today. They represent that these myths and these legends were not just myths and legends at one point, they were true. And they are still myths and legends to people like you and me, who may not have seen them all. You know, if you've never seen a great white shark, then that is an animal which is a myth and a legend to you. They need to be out there hunting and doing what they have done for millions of years, because it keeps the symbolic nature of them real. It keeps that spirit of adventure real, you know, to know that there are places out there where these things still exist. I think that is incredibly important. I think it's more important than the environmental reasons. It's a preservation of the wonder of nature. It's one of those things which preserves the wonder of nature. And for me, That's a beautiful thing and should be preserved and protected for as long as there are human beings around. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's something very different, something that I don't normally do, but it's something I'm really interested in, and I like doing this whole thing with the maps and the graphics and the editing. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun to talk about nature in a non-scientific environmental way, at least for me anyway. However, all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please like the like button or dislike the dislike button, whichever one you want to do, I don't really mind. Hit the subscribe button. I don't know if you've got to hit it or if you caress it or just like fiddle with it, as long as it's clicked so you're notified when I next update a video, and ring the bell for some reason. I don't know what the bell does. I will never know what the bell does, apparently. But if you want to ring it, that would make me very, very happy. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you for another adventure. Cheers.